Can you hear the
Um,
music?
no, no music. Can't hear music.
Start. Yo, Parish Orphans and Retrogrades, special Saturday episode of Rules for Retrogrades today. I have my friend, Mr. Royce White, who's an alumnus of the show. He's been on many times. He's also been on CMask. Coming fresh off primary victory, Royce will now be the first Black nominee for the U.S. Senate of either major party. He's, of course, a Republican in Minnesotan history, elected by all those quote unquote racist America First and ultra MAGA citizens, which is a great point. I'm just reading from a Royce tweet. They're not racist, and this is a high honor, says Royce. The mainstream media can't even mention the history that was made because it doesn't fit their race baiting. And it's going to help Royce against incumbent Amy Klobuchar. Royce, welcome back to the show. Now you are a candidate, a real candidate against an incumbent, and you will not be primaried. You refuse to be primaried out. Congratulations, my friend.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it, and of course, I appreciate being on the show. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, brother. What was that expression you just used before I clicked stream or whatever stupid button you said? So in this situation, proverbially speaking, YouTube, you got to shoot your way out. You don't vote your way out or something. Can you explain? Because yours is the ultimate campaign of like manliness. And this is kind of the manliness podcast. So I love the fact that now you have more skin in the game. You're still saying shoot your way out, don't vote your way out, or whatever expression you used. There's still nothing to be sensitive about. We're going to call everyone cucks the way you do and we do here on this show. Now that I'm the Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate of Minnesota. I love it.
For sure. For sure. No, I mean, we part of the problem in American politics is that these, people stand up to want to run for office and represent the American citizens. They see that there are problems, and at each stage of success, slowly but surely, they start to concede everything that got them to that point. And before you know it, you'll have some consultant come in and say, hey, we can get a couple $1 million behind you, and that'll put you in front of enough casual eyeballs to get you across the finish line. But the only catch is you got to change everything about how you got here in the first place. It's like, no, we ran a grassroots campaign. We ran a grassroots campaign for the endorsement. We ran a grassroots campaign to win this primary. We don't have any special interest or lobby money behind us. We don't have any fancy or expensive consultants from DC. We don't have a campaign manager or a general consultant. And that, some people will say, oh, you shouldn't even say that because it makes your campaign seem like it's not organized. No, this is a testament that grassroots volunteers campaigns have legitimacy in American politics, which is an antidote to the copious amounts of lobby and special interest money that have plagued American politics forever. But in my brand has been, this is the alpha male, ultra MAGA, smash mouth, nationalist, populist, Christian conservative campaign.
I know. Yeah. And you are coming fresh off of a dredging up from the Wayback Machine of statements you've made probably on this podcast or related to your appearance on this podcast, but you also say it on your own. Quote, women are mouthy, which is something people associate with me saying here. And the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, shades of Trump in 2016, is you just being like, yup, I said that. Like, what is it about you? I guess you already answered this, but because your approach is non-machine generated, you're able to say, yep, I said that. Like, Trump would never apologize for all of the impolite things he said during the 2016 Republican primary about like the other candidates' wives. It was hilarious. Is that what enables you to go for? Like Ted Cruz's wife, he's like, yeah, she's ugly or whatever he said. Like, you seem to be of that mold, except
I might be worse. I might be a little worse. And the reason why I'm probably a little worse is because I'm a little younger, so I don't have that thin veil of civility that Donald Trump himself even still carries from an older generation. You know, when they say the people have had a belly full of it, the younger people are going to be even more brash and unrelenting in the way that we talk about things. So, you know, first off, when I said women are mouthy, of course I'm not backstepping, but obviously they're trying to take that out of context. And the important context of the comment was Steve Bannon on his podcast asked me a question about how mainstream media, liberals, particularly MSNBC, has tried to caricature the MAGA movement as rube white men who are Christian that are only really upset with the modern age of politics because their women have gotten too mouthy. And in response to that, I said, well, women are mouthy, right? And I mean, it's just to my point was, and first of all, when you make a comment about women, first of all, any broad cultural critique about women is considered off limits. Let's start there. If there's one
Broad,
soul, if there's
broad
one
cultural
soul,
critique about broads, if we can.
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. If 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 there's one measure of how rotten our American political culture is, it is that any broad cultural critique of women whatsoever is greatly seen as off limits. Like, for example, women online all the time, and even mainstream media, you know, commentators, politicians, candidates, so on and so forth. You know, they can call us Nazi, fascist, dusty, hotep, you know, conspiracy theorist, you know,
Toxic.
fraud,
Yeah.
whatever they want. They can call us whatever they want. Knuckle dragger. I've been called knuckle dragger online. I mean, they can say there's no limits, no constraints, but I can't say they're mouthy. And to be honest, mouthy isn't really that disrespectful. It's, you know, the word mouthy means to have the tendency to talk a lot, usually in an impudent way. I mean, it's not even like a very extreme, you know, thing to say. It's not an extreme insult. You know, now when I called Barack Obama a cunt, now that may be a little bit more brash and a little bit more vulgar, but I stand by that statement the same way I do saying that there are women who are mouthy. So I don't know what to tell these people. They want me to like live in this, you know, fabricated sort of persona of American politician, and that's exactly how we got where we are today.
No one would ever dream of calling Michelle Obama that.
Well, you know, Michelle,
Michael.
you know, look, here's what I'll say about Michelle. I can't really tell how political Michelle is. Like, I view Michelle more as a prop than anything. You know, I don't view her as a cold-hearted, calculated political mind. So, you know, she's kind of just a standalone. So I don't really have the same emotional feelings about Michelle as I do Barack Obama, just on face value, until if they would decide to run her. I mean, if they decide to run her and she steps out into the arena in that way, then it's, you know, then the gloves are off and we got to deal with her in earnest too. But up until now, she's just been a prop. But Barack Obama is you know, went to
Yeah.
law school. Law schools have been hijacked by the Marxists for a long time, knows exactly what he's doing, ran this country into the ground intentionally, and he's as high up the you know, the sort of high council of anti-Americanism and anti-Christ as it gets.
Absolutely. And by the way, Royce, I was just making a big Mike joke with them. That's
Right,
why no one would dream it. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Look, just
Those pictures with the bulge in the pants are crazy. I still can't tell which ones are photoshopped and which ones aren't because we're living in this AI, you know, generation. But if they're not photoshopped, if some of them are genuine and authentic, it certainly does beg a lot of questions, doesn't it?
it begs at least one.
At least one question, maybe three,
Yeah, yeah,
three.
maybe three. One, two, three bumps. Um, anyway, yeah, I can't tell what's photoshopped either. I'm bad at technology, but on since I have you on feminism, I will say this. This is Steph's book, Ask Your Husband. Here she says the first rule of feminism is, as you were intoning it well 3 minutes ago, you never say anything negative about a woman anytime, anywhere, for any reason, no matter how badly she's acting. And when you came under the fire, sort of initially, and then they dredged it back up recently, women are mouthy. like you say, that's not that mean of a thing. But you ran into, Royce, the first rule of feminism, which preponderated in the popular culture. You never ever say anything bad about a woman. If a woman's acting obviously really, really badly in public and everyone saw it, then they don't deny it. They just say it must be the nearest man's problem. How is I mean, as a senator, a would-be senator, you won't really be confronted with that. But I feel like MAGA, Trump kind of has to deal with this. It's a cultural moment, and people are now talking about what we're not supposed to talk about. That
Yeah.
women have gotten really, really mouthy,
Yeah.
and I don't know. Obviously, it's sort of a fixation of this channel. We have to turn that around and let men be men and women be their helpmeets once again. So the further and further you step into public life, the more and more excited I get because I know you're going to keep pushing that one issue, and that is the big issue you're not allowed to talk
For
about.
sure. Well, it's a part of a couple of identity politics issues, and the ones I focus on or have been talking about on the podcast and in public on the campaign are being black, being Jewish, being LGBTQ, and being women, being a woman, being female. But you know, the woman piece is at the heart of the issue. Let's say from a practical standpoint, from a
Right.
cultural standpoint, being black is the linchpin, right? Because the black identity carries the most visceral historical weight in American culture. So being black is really the linchpin from a cultural standpoint. From a practical standpoint, you are looking at a fight between men and women, a political fight. And the problem has been, and I said it before, and I'll continue to say it, we have a crisis of American cuckery where a lot of men would much rather forego that necessary and rightful criticism of any women in pursuit of their in the interest of their romantic and sexual pursuits. It's cuckery. It's cuckery at the highest level, the highest political level, and you know it is something that we will have to overcome if we really have a chance whatsoever to save this republic. If we continue to allow the American feminist and modern feminist movement to dominate American politics, this country will go up in flames. It already is. It's burning now, but it will continue to go up in flames, and it'll be unrecognizable. There might still be a country here or a place, but it won't be the United States of America. It'll be some strange kabuki political theater hybrid of communist China and Brussels and Davos, Switzerland. So
I mean, as you know, it already feels like that to guys like me or our boy
yeah,
AJ or just guys like us out there. It already feels that way. And here's one thing I would say. I would I would push back on, I mean, like obviously the sexiest issue out there, culturally speaking, has been race. I think it's because of boomers, but that's not that's not the most important aspect of this. I
yeah,
would say aside from just the way the boomers had this absolute fixation with race, boomers of both parties, they think race, racism, these are the biggest issues.
yeah,
This is not my favorite pope. This is one of the worst popes of the 20th century because Francis wasn't in the 20th century, but Paul the Sixth, Vatican II, Paul the Sixth, said that even in the glorified state, meaning like once we get our bodies back up in heaven, in humans, the difference of sex exercises an important influence much deeper than ethnic differences. The latter do not affect the human as intimately as the difference of sex. The effect of God's will from the beginning, male and female, he created them. Meaning,
yeah,
there's so much. I'm not saying race accounts for nothing. Like it's kinship groups and stuff. But I think Paul the Sixth, and I don't say this often about Paul the Sixth, really got this right. In terms of human identity, human personality, the first thing that a kid realizes is I'm a boy or I'm a girl, and that
right,
plays a much
right,
larger role than like I'm black or white. Like I have
yes,
things in common with you, and we have a pretty damn similar worldview, pretty near. And it's like we're both men, whereas women, even my best friend in the world is my wife, but women are still fundamentally separated from men. Even though Steph agrees with all the critiques of women, Steph wrote many of my critiques of women. I would just say that culturally, because the family is, as the Catechism says, the original cell of society, the fact that the feminists got 99% of men out there to be cucks through, I don't have it, this document from this meeting they had at Seneca Falls, New York in 1848, basically got 99% of the men out there in the burbs, even the Republicans, to treat their wives as bosses. We have a real cultural problem that's deeper than anything in the church. That's I'm a Latin Mass Catholic, bigger than the Latin Mass versus Novus Ordo, bigger than race, bigger than welfare state, bigger than
Yes.
even abortion. Like
Yes.
individual families are under assault from tyrants, and they're tyrants who have been through gender dysphoria tricked into thinking that they're the bosses when they could never be the bosses of the home.
Absolutely. No, and that's why I say the race is the cultural issue. And when I say cultural, I mean the cultural narrative, right? The race is the issue that's put up and propped up culturally. This is the American cultural divide. But the practical divide, the practical divide, the nuts and bolts, the ones and zeros, the balls and strikes, it all comes down to the issue in the garden. And you know, people, you're not even supposed to be able to say that. I mean, you're not even supposed to say that there is any real practical issue in the divide between men and women in American politics, because the broad assumption is that you avoid any conflict whatsoever with women for personal reasons, interpersonal reasons, marriages, relationships, whatever, but also broader political reasons, like you need all suburban women in order to win an election. And
Right.
that's you know, that's a form of American cuckery too. Like all of these neocon rhinos keep talking about needing suburban women. You lost in the greater Atlanta area. You lost in the greater Philadelphia area. You lost in the greater Detroit area. You could have easily have gone and gotten people who don't vote. You could have helped bring in some of the homeless. You could have. Now in Minnesota, we're going to let ex-cons vote for the first time. There's about 55,000 of them that get to vote now. You could have went and got the Black and Hispanic working class. You could have got more Christians to vote, more
Right.
Christian men. There's a lot of Christian men and women that are sitting out not voting. So even this idea that you got to get suburban white liberal women in order to win elections is a form of American cuckery. You're
Agreed.
basically saying if we don't concede that the LGBTQ movement, the women's rights movement, and the Black Lives Matter movement are inextricably linked, and that means we have to also concede a man can wake up on Tuesday and by lunchtime be a woman, then you can't win elections. So you're not a conservative, and you're
Right.
certainly not a Republican. I don't know what you are, but I do know what you're a cuck, and that's all I need to say. You're just a full blown political cuck.
It's funny that I'm like, agreed, agreed. And everyone that's watching is like, we know you agree. Like, this is like our favorite issue here at Rules for Retrogrades. I will say this. Um, you mentioned MSNBC. There's
Yeah,
a writer there called Jahan Jones, and it's hilarious. I was reading up after your primary victory. He called your victory disastrous for Minnesota Republicans, and
yep,
I'm just like, this. I think this is code speak for Royce's victory could well be disastrous for Minnesota Democrats, or maybe for the Republican machine in national politics, because correct me if I have it wrong, but you're following, I mean, I hear it with every word you say right now, the 2016 Bannon slash Trump plan of IDGAF. I mean, you're just dripping with it. And that's what won for Trump in 2016. I hope he remembers that in 2024, by the way, but it's IDGAF. I don't even have a campaign manager. I'm just going to say the truth and see if the people out there have a nose for the truth, right? That's why you're
right.
disastrous for machine, I don't know, campaign strategists everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. Machine campaigns, machine learning, remote learning, remote viewing. I mean, all these things go hand in hand. We're just living in this sort of AI kind of fake, superficial fugazi of contemporary thought, and it's we should all go along with it. It's like you have to. This is we talk about this before on the show. And I continue to go back to it on the campaign trail when I'm out there in greater Minnesota, rural Minnesota, where you still have some Christians. They are really drawn to the heresies of the West, and particularly the heresy of democracy. This idea that all majorities are made equal and righteous, which couldn't
Right.
be further from the truth on a fundamental basis. All majorities aren't made equal, obviously, and they certainly aren't made righteous. In fact, the real heresy of democracy, circa post-Enlightenment Europe, is if any chance you get a group of people, it's much more likely that that majority is reflective of the fallen nature of man than it is righteous or super righteous. Yeah, most majorities, most democratic majorities are going to be a result and a reflection of all of the corrosive decay, societal decay, and spiritual decay that their individuals behold. So, this idea that democracy should be the guiding star of people is lunacy. It's crazy. It's how we end up in a place where, let's not even talk about the LGBTQ if we don't need to. It's like,
Right.
are you kidding me? Of course, we're going to talk about bringing a child who couldn't be more than 5 years old to a pride event where there are grown men who are half dressed in leather, what not leather, but it's latex dog caps with ears on them and BDSM chains, and you're going to let the little girl go up and pet the man. Of course, we're going to talk about that. I mean, how could I not talk about that? And if that makes me weird, then I guess we're just going to have to agree to disagree and let the chips fall where they may. Like the great Bruce Lee says, you have to accept the art of dying.
Yeah.
To die is to be liberated from it. You want to learn the way to win, but you never accept the way to lose. And that,
Yeah.
there's a profundity in that, is like,
Yeah.
okay, if we lose telling the truth, then praise be to God. And if you don't believe in that ethic or edifice, then you can't call yourself Christian. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah. Remember when Kevin Durant, I know you have relationships with some of these guys, but when Kevin Durant pulled the switcheroo from the Thunder to the Warriors, broke all of our hearts. Right after, Hampton's five, Draymond Green started texting him and he left. And then
Yeah.
Russ said, in kind of capturing the great Bruce Lee, he said, well, I'd rather lose with honor than win like a coward. And that's
Yeah.
I think says everything you're just saying there. I
Yeah.
still love
Yeah. No.
Russ, by the way. Even
Yeah.
after he started wearing dresses, I still love Russ. But
I can't do it. I have to disagree. I I
yeah,
I uh I respect the way he plays,
yeah,
but we're also going to go through this weird quickening where you get these mutants, like cultural political mutants, where a guy has that real intense tenacity and plays with a lot of passion and sells out from a physical standpoint, but then sells out from a political standpoint. So
right.
LeBron's the same way, right? I actually think KD's probably closer to at least bucking the status quo from a political standpoint than maybe the athletic standpoint. So that's a weird catch-22. But again, I mean, Russ, once you put a dress, once a grown man wears a dress, you're off my short list of people that I acknowledge as being men. You're not a man.
There's there's no coming back.
Yeah.
He played like such a warrior
He
for
was.
so
He's a
he still
monster. He's a
does.
monster on the
He's a
court. But
monster. He's
you
the
wear you,
only
you wear a
guy.
dress. Once you wear the dress, you're out.
No, I know. I know.
You're
I,
out.
I wish he knew that because I've always just I respected him so much. Once the dress came on, I was like, "What are you doing, Russ? What are you doing?" He's the only guy that reminds any of us of like Mamba energy. He goes hard no matter
Right.
what.
Right.
He's going hard in a
Let me
dress,
and
and
let me qualify though. I want to qualify this. You're not out in the eyes of Christ, because there are plenty of people who who make mistakes and can repent and come back into the grace and charity of God and Christ. So I'm not saying he's out totally. I'm saying for me personally,
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't, in this moment of crisis for our country,
yeah,
in my community, I don't want to associate with or hang with or hang any real credibility on men who wear dresses, because that's the immediate fight that we're in, right? Is like
right.
that's just a stark line that's drawn in the sand. And it's not a casual thing that the NBA has taken all of these strong, athletic, competitive spatial geniuses, black men, and emasculated them. That just isn't a coincidence. It's very strategic, in my opinion.
Sure. Well, it reminds me a little bit of that odious American institution. We won't name it here, involving chips and the Atlantic. you know, because of who tends to run the NBA. We don't have to designate it, and who, you know, the way that they're sort of breaking the wills of these really talented, otherwise alpha guys, like I don't know, I can't agree with you on LeBron. I just have too much hatred in my heart for the way he plays and how he talks, not just how he talks, but there are so many talented guys in the NBA that
Yeah.
that have their wills broken by the massas who run the leagues. That
Yep.
it's Are you still going to associate with Big Three at all? The Big Three, 3-and-3 league
Yeah. No,
with
I played in the Big Three this last year. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you did, but I mean, if you're a Minnesota senator, you're going to be like, guys, you're a U.S. senator, timeout, guys.
Yes.
I got a 3-on-3 game. That would be so
Guys, I got
based.
a game to get to. You guys
Yeah,
got it's only on Saturdays. And come on, let's not act like the Senate is chomping at the bit to get
right,
there and get some work done on a Saturday afternoon. I mean, come on, let's be realistic. Of course I'm going to
right,
play. Of
right,
course I'm going to play.
right. Have you had any luck?
We need more part-time politicians. We
Oh,
really do.
agree. Because
Yeah.
Jefferson said that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jefferson, the great George Mason was of the
Yep.
view. I mean, they all were. That's the whole point. And it's not democracy. It's to run a republic the right
Yes.
way, which is what we are. We're not. It's bullshit. We're not a democracy. We're a republic.
That's right.
Um, it's all part time. This is just a personal curiosity. Are you and Cube cool? Because I mean, I know he has part ownership in the league. And
Yeah, no,
did you ever?
he's the owner. You know, the co-founder is Jeff Quatnitz, and yeah, they've always been supportive. I mean, the whole reason I got connected to Bannon in the first place was because Jeff Quatnitz and he used to be partners in a business venture. So, you know, I owe a lot of credit to Jeff and Cube just for my political career thus far, and my rise in the MAGA movement as a voice with the TV show and the radio show and all the things that I'm doing now. And Cube has spoken out, you know, on a lot of things, and he's been called anti-Semitic, and his one partner in all of these business ventures, Jeff, is Jewish, and he's had to come out and defend Cube and say, wait a minute, you're calling this guy anti-Semitic. I'm with him every day of my life. So
Right.
you know, we know how they're using that, but yeah, I mean, Cube is got a lot on his plate because he's going against the same establishment that I am in many ways. And I'm not saying a Jewish establishment. I mean, it just happens to be the NBA is a direct competitor, the Big Three, and you know that is what it is. I'm just saying that he's going against the proverbial mainstream media and sports entertainment industry with trying to branch out and have a league that isn't a part of that American professional sports monopoly. So yeah, I mean he's got a lot on his plate, and I wish him the best and hope he continues to chart a course. The Big Three's getting bigger than ever. Us being able
Yeah.
to stream on X this year was incredible. Millions and millions of viewers every weekend for the games. I had a terrible season. We had a bunch of discord on the team, our power team this year, and next year we're gonna have to make some changes and adjustments. But I'm still young. I'm 33. I think people lose sight of the fact that I'm 33 years old. Like I'm in my athletic prime, and
You
I
are.
was willing. I'm willing to sacrifice that for to save the country. But if I get a chance to play and compete as well, I'm gonna continue to do that. So
That's awesome. Did you know our boy AJ came out here for my birthday and we played 1-on-1 3 times? He
who
didn't
who
tell you that.
who who won? He
We
beat you?
split 1-1, and then the last one we stopped at tie because we were out there. He's a lockdown defender,
Oh yeah,
but
oh yeah.
yeah, yeah. But
AJ's a killer. AJ's a
he's a
killer.
killer. 4-4-40, but I'm a lockdown offender. So, and I'm 43. I got 10 years on him. So
Yeah.
I thought good to come away with the split.
I wish I could have been a fly. No, you guys should have recorded that. I don't know what kind of scam you're running with
We
AJ
had
where you guys didn't
Yeah,
record that one on. That is like for the history books right there.
it was. Well, I think I sent you an invite, but you're busy like running for the Senate, bro.
Oh
So
man, it's
look,
terrible, man. Terrible.
tell me this. So I want to tell you, I've already talked about John saying you're disastrous for the machine.
Yeah.
I think you're disastrous for anyone that wants the political order, the political culture of doublespeak to survive. And I really mean that. And it's related to your
Yeah.
the manliness versus cuck thing. It's like, I really think it's always tough for a non-incumbent to win in a senatorial race, but I think that's the draw is like this guy's going to come out and make jokes about very politically incorrect things like Trump because people have a nose for truth. And I don't know. I don't know what issues you're running on. What do you run on issues in the Senate? I mean, it's the same as
Yeah.
it's national politics, right?
Yeah. No, well, the theme of the campaign has been the people are coming. That we the people have to be restored in the order of power in this country. But the priority issues have been border debt forever wars. Close the border, pay back the debt, stop getting involved in forever wars. Very simple, but
Yeah.
also very doable and very doable on day one. And the three issues are inextricably linked. The issue that we've been having in the conservative movement is you get these mealy mouth politicians who show up to these stump speeches and they're clear about the border. They're clear about the debt, and then they get waffly on the forever wars, and
Right.
it's just a lie. I mean, you anybody who will tell you that we're going to do anything significant around the debt while still raising the debt ceiling to print money to go fight a war we can't win, they're just lying to you, right? And
Yeah.
also borders work in both directions. So borders aren't just this political construct like I've said on the show before. I think borders are a limit on man's unfettered ambition to be God, to rule over everything. So
Right.
that means borders work in both directions. You can't talk about the illegal immigrants coming across your border, but you're forwarding some military industrial complex reverse vassal Ponzi scheme all around the world. These things are contradictions of the conservative movement that we've had to clarify as MAGA candidates, and we're starting to make some real headway. So that's been what I've ran on, thus far. And the biggest tell about my candidacy is that none of them want to go back and acknowledge the role I played in trailblazing the mental health topic. They've just
That'll
kind of
help.
they've
Yeah.
just kind of lib washed that from stricken that from the record. It's like, oh well, back in 2016, this guy is a trailblazer for the mental
Trailblazer.
health topic. He's sacrificed so much in the interest of the greater good of a bipartisan issue. Remember, mental health was seen as the grand bipartisan issue,
I know.
and I actually have measurable merit in forwarding an issue in a multi-billion-dollar multinational organization and company in terms of policy, and they won't even mention it. I mean, nowhere. It's now the mainstream media like MSNBC. Now they say Royce White, whose career was shortened because of mental health issues, not
Right.
because he advocated for mental health policy. And that's so intentional. It's almost unbelievable. They think the average American citizen won't pick up on it. But that's why Amy Klobuchar is now in more danger than ever, because the contradictions are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
For the parish orphans and retrogrades out there who don't know Royce's history with the NBA, he's an ex NBA player. Had anxiety issues, and that's another way in which we are boys. I'm like many. I have anxiety, that kicks in and kicks out, and part of it had to do with travel, getting around on the planes and stuff. I remember all this long before we were friends,
Yeah.
because you're such a big draft prospect in the lotto there.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, he really blazed a trail back when it wasn't cool to be like, hey, I'm having some mental health issues. Fast forward, what was it, last Olympics 4 years ago, when you don't have to touch this unless you want to. Simone Biles is basically, she's pretty much admitted she was basically just having an off season. I don't care
Right.
about non-team sports like gymnastics, but so she said mental health. And then everyone was like, we'll give her a pass, even she just wasn't performing last Olympics in 2020. And everyone rushed in to say, well, she's still the GOAT, she's still the greatest. Like, this path was blazed by Royce for anyone who wanted to be like, look, I'm a person too, not just like a gladiator in the Colosseum, which is a slave. Like, I might have a bad game because my parents got divorced, or I remember when Steph Curry was
Yeah.
going through that stuff like
Yeah.
that. That's real.
Yeah.
These are real people. You're the one that blazed that path, and it's very, very popular position now. And of course, they don't want to give you credit for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just it's strange to say the very least. But again, we're living in strange times. The biggest issue, and to go back to draw a corollary here of why they really didn't want to give me the credit then, let alone now, is very sneaky, manipulative things happen in our global corporate community. For example, when I got to the NBA, there wasn't a single mention of mental health in the entire collective bargaining agreement.
Mhm.
And for those who don't understand out there, everybody who works in the NBA office are lawyers. It's just a bunch of lawyers that run the NBA, particularly so that they don't ever have to worry about being sued, and business can always go on unimpeded. But you mean to tell me that an entire collective bargaining agreement was written up and revised and fought about between the players union and the NBA owners, and mental health didn't even make the document one time? Okay. However, simultaneously, they had a banned substance list that has a bunch of anti-anxiety medication on it. For example, you know, Xanax, which I was prescribed to fly because I did have anxiety attacks, or panic attacks or panic around flying, which now seems to be vindicated because Boeing's planes are literally falling apart, mostly because of DEI hires, or I don't know what else is going on. Maybe China's trying to tank one of these American military industrial complex companies. I can't be sure. But point being, yeah, I didn't like to fly, and I was prescribed Xanax to be able to deal with that or any other panic attacks that might come up. And it's a very addictive drug. And so it was rightfully placed on the banned substance list to ensure that players weren't using street Xanax that they picked up off the street to get high, because it is a very popular recreational drug all throughout America for people who aren't prescribed. Now, the trick there is people who are prescribed also run the risk of taking the drug as prescribed, running into interdosal withdrawals and becoming addicted, even if they take it exactly as the doctor says. And that's what Dr. Jordan Peterson ran into. And so when
Right.
I was in the NBA, I said, okay, if the Xanax is on the banned substance list, how do we interpret how much of it I should or shouldn't be using? And how will that be judged from the organization standpoint in terms of contract or playing time? I mean, like, what if you're telling me, "Hey, get on the plane instead of driving when you can," which is kind of weird, domineering way to deal with the athletes anyway, especially in the
Yeah.
context of NBA players and NBA organizations. The players are independent contractors by all measure. If it wasn't for the union that brought them together into collective bargaining, each player would be a 1099, right? They'd be a contract. But so to say that, like, it's some stretch for me to drive from Chicago to Minneapolis instead of getting on a private charter in the interest of team camaraderie, when all the athletes do anyway is get on the plane, put their headphones on, and go to sleep for the 45-minute flight, is some cuckery in and of itself. I mean, I don't even want to talk about what's going on there. That's some strange stuff. But the point was, um, it's it's imperative. It's imperative to look at the NBA and their lack of mental health policy, but their use of a banned substance list, and then to point me out and go, well, it's well, you can take as much as you need. Wait a second. Hold on. It's on the banned substance list for a reason. What do you mean I can take as much as I need? Right? You see what I'm saying? So my point in highlighting that is the NBA and this global corporate community and their political ideology and edifice is a shining example that the rules and laws and ideas that they put in place actually have no real genuine intention to bring well-being. It's all
Yeah.
sort of a smoke and mirrors to forward their own agenda, their own ambitions. They don't care about they don't care if players get drunk or get high or have drug abuse. All they care about is, one, does it affect their ability to play? Or two, does it become a PR problem for them? That's what they care about. And they
Right.
mimic the Democrat Party and this neoliberal, neoconservative, neo-Marxist world order, to boot. They're all part of the same sort of thinking around these issues, especially when it comes to rules and laws and policy.
Amen. Yeah, and I hope you, to the extent that your campaign is going to be in national spotlight, I hope you continue to. You're always good at this, sticking up for your part and saying, "Hey, I want the record corrected. I was a trailblazer on this issue, and I'm proud. Even with the way things turned out, I'm proud because I blazed a trail for Simone Biles and other people. It's a real issue. I mean, anxiety is a real issue, and I also don't like planes, but uh, I don't know. Can you say? Here's one thing. You don't have to tell me if you don't want, but do you ever get phone calls with the Dawn? Everyone's always wondering that. You're MAGA guy.
Yeah, yeah. No, I haven't spoken to Donald Trump on the phone. I'm obviously very connected to a lot of the people on Team Trump. I mean, you're talking about a guy who was just touched by the hand of God, and we witnessed a miracle and that failed
Unbelievable.
assassination attempt. If he had been killed that day, um, we'd probably be under martial law right now, and an entire generation would have been frightened to speak the truth against the establishment status quo of politics in this country. So it was a absolute miracle in many regards that he wasn't killed that day. But my point is, he's dealing with so many different things right now. I mean, I
Yeah.
couldn't even begin to imagine. He's getting sued left and right, brought into court, not to mention the election and everything else, almost getting assassinated. I mean, this man has more on his plate than anybody I could probably think of in recent human history. So I don't take it personal, but I'm in contact with the team, and obviously I'm supporting his candidacy for all of the reasons that we've been discussing today. That brash mouth, American first, nationalist, populist sort of mentality is exactly what this country needs. It's the only thing and I'm not even saying we're going to save the republic. I'm not saying that if Donald Trump is elected, that we're going to save this thing. I'm not under that false, uh, uh, you know, assumption. But it's the only chance we got. I do know
Right.
that. I'm
Yeah.
100% certain. If we do
Thanks
have a
for, of
chance, it ain't with Kamala Harris. I know that
course.
for a fact.
Of course. Yeah, that's just so refreshing to hear. I mean, I'm going to vote for Trump. I liked his rhetoric in 2016 better than now in 2024, but I'm
Yeah,
still going to vote for him. And I just appreciate, as always, the candor out of you. Like, oh, vote for Trump, not because of some Mitt Romney like machine Republican promise that this will save everything. Like, the Republic might well be too far gone, but at least that's 4 years of sanity instead of 4 years of insanity. And there's more of a chance of pulling it out of the fire. That doesn't mean it's 100%. I just appreciate the candor. Here's my most piquant question for you. As you're a
yeah,
Catholic, I'm a
yeah,
Catholic. This audience is mostly Catholic.
yeah.
What's and I mean, it's kind of a softball in a way, but in a real way, we've seen a restoration of the role of Christ in the public life over the last 4 years, making it hard for non Christians, not just to be in politics, in right wing politics, but even to run right wing media outlets. Um, do you see this trend of Christ being restored to the public life? Christ is king, you know, continuing or abating after the 2024 election? Because it's got to go one way or the other.
Oh, we're in the midst of a complete revival. I mean, I give you an example of the trajectory of this. In 2022, when I ran for Congress, uh, I was new to the Republican Party, and I found myself quickly in a congressional district convention where the congressional district delegates cast their votes for which congressional district candidate will represent them in their respective House race, right? And then it was CD5 against Ilhan Omar. I lost that convention delegate vote by about 20 votes or 30 votes. It was like, I don't know, 192 to 215, 17, something like that. But anyway, my opening bid in the conventional district convention speech was, "Are we the party of God?" And there was this huge split and roar in the room. Like it wasn't all friendly. It wasn't the applause you would think from a
Right.
conservative, Republican Party or a more Christian voter base. It was like, oh, did he really just say that? And one woman actually yelled from the side. I remember being in the room that day. She goes, "You don't have a corner on God." And there was a young man, a young white man, a young white male. He couldn't have been more than 23 in the front row. He goes, "Yes, we do." Right. And so, but that was what the Republican Party looked like only 2 short years ago.
I know.
Fast forward to 2024, me standing up in front of the entire Minnesota Republican delegate state convention, where all of them are fully aware of my Christian identity and my Catholic faith, even so far as to talk about it openly in that convention speech and win a resounding endorsement from the Minnesota Republican delegates at 68% on the first ballot. Christ is king. Christ is coming back to American politics, and we can't shy away from it. Those are the Mitt Romneys and be Mormon or whatever you want to say, Mitt. Fine. The point is that the thrust of that echelon of the Republican Party, it talked about Christianity, but it's really just a talking point. It was never, for example, and I say this with all due respect and humility. None of us Christians, whether we be Catholic or Protestant or whatever other denomination you call home, none of us can blame the satanic rise, the rise of Satanism in American culture on the Satanists. We can't blame it on the Marxists or the communists or the atheists. We are responsible for the loss or lack of ministering the gospel.
Yeah.
So, and I say that in reference to the Republican Party because a lot of these 501c3 neocon Christians have run on a Christian platform, yet every time we came to this crossroads where Christianity was challenged in legislation, they bent the knee, they folded, they tucked their tail and ran. And they actually had the audacity to come back and run again on a Christian platform. And the sad part is many Christians say, hey, well, at least if you acknowledge Christ, then you're good with me. No, no, no. We got a new brand of American politics coming, especially on the Christian front. You got to really stand on it. You got to really stand on that principle if you're gonna wrap yourself in the cloth of Christ. And I'm proud to be one of those candidates doing it. And one of those referendums is something like, and us Catholics, you and I know this. The profanity piece is like a lot of your 501c3 Protestant Christians hang their hat on their Christian identity being solely, defined by an issue like, do I use profanity or not? It's like,
Oh shit. I hate
well,
it. I hate it.
it is. I can't tell you how much I hear it, especially because I have a podcast and I'm on the radio and so on and so forth, and the clips are circulating the internet about me. And people go, "Oh yeah, I like Royce a lot, and he seems like a God-fearing man, but his use of profanity, I just can't support." It's like, well, then vote for the Satanists. I mean,
Right.
proceed. No,
Yeah.
seriously. If you want to, if you are so sensitive and so offended by the use of a four-letter word to add color to commentary, that you're willing to be passive and let Satanists run your school boards, proceed. I mean, you got to deal with God in the end on that judgment, not me.
Yeah, pick your priorities, people. I mean, look, I hear it all the time because we're salty on this podcast, and it's a kind of trad Catholic podcast. But guess what, people? Don't read the Bible either, because St. Paul says shit in the Bible. The Greek word skubala is in the Bible, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I get sick of that when I hear that a lot about you. Your Twitter account's great, one of my favorites to follow. You also are calling everyone this way and that a cuck. And
Yeah.
some people they just don't understand that there's a war. This is a weapon, as the great Earth Crisis said in their fifth album. There's a war. This is a weapon, and manliness is the currency on which any war is fought if we're taking it seriously. So I just say what you said about the restoration of the role of Christ in public life is exactly what I know you believe. I'm glad to
Yeah.
hear you say it. It's just always great talking to you, Royce. Can you want to, as a parting shot, say something negative about Amy Klobuchar that we might not know, being non-Minnesotans here, or anything
Yeah.
you want, I guess.
Amy Klobuchar, they called her. It's pronounced Amy Klobuchar. She's a She is the most dangerous thing in American politics. I know many people have their emotional feelings about a character like Ilhan Omar, and I tried my best to have Republican Party voters in the primary cross over because we have open primaries and vote for her Democrat opponent, who she only lost to by 2,000 votes in the 2022 midterm. I tried my best to organize what Rush Limbaugh used to call a little bit of Operation Chaos here in Minnesota, and you might have saw that go viral on the internet when the days before our primary because Ilhan was up for reelection or is up for reelection. But make no mistake about it, Amy Klobuchar is even more dangerous than Ilhan. You
What
know,
is that?
because at least Ilhan is going to show you exactly what she believes. Amy Klobuchar is going to smile in your face. She's going to go take pictures at the local cookie sale, the cookie bake. You know, the world's largest cookie. You know, as the motif from Bruce Almighty. You know that
Yeah.
that type of media coverage, the senator of small things, and this sort of home style, unassuming United States senator. Meanwhile, every single vote is a vote for the status quo globalist world order. Every single vote. And any vote that isn't is just to preserve the image that she's even somewhat ballast on the deal. You know, when the vote really counts, she'll stand in front of the American people and say Joe Biden's fit for office. Right? There's nothing wrong with his mental capacity whatsoever. He's as good as he's ever been. This is the most dangerous, and the scary part is, and I just been going right down the pipe. I mean, we're 80 days away from one of the most pivotal elections in this country's history. There's no time for cutting corners or being nice. In Minnesota, a lot of Republicans vote for Amy Klobuchar. They think she's great. If
Really?
there's not a greater example, an indictment of what I was just saying about the Republican Party and conservative movement, it is Amy Klobuchar's candidacy, and that's why I chose to run in this state for that seat, is to put that referendum back up for the American people. Winning and losing ain't about me; it's about if the American people really want something different. And Amy Klobuchar is, I mean, it's scary how establishment she is, but even more scary how many Republicans vote for her, if that in fact is happening. And if it's not, then the Republicans all across the state need to be crying foul about the integrity of our elections because on paper, they say that Republicans love her. So now we're going to find out. We're going to find out where everybody's at here come November. If the Republicans in the state of Minnesota are really okay with Amy Klobuchar's style of representation, you all get the government you deserve.
So this is a down ballot vote on the national election, right? But people will be voting, God willing, for Royce White in Minnesota on the same day, of course, because it's a U.S. Senate vote, that they are, God willing, voting for Donald Trump to be president for the
What and
third
what an
time.
incredible honor too, right? I mean, it's one of
Yeah.
the high accomplishments as a young 33-year-old American citizen to share a ballot with one of the most important presidents in American history is just incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's quite based. Makes me proud to, I mean,
I
there are
want to
lots of
get a ballot and
reasons.
save it. I know you
Yeah.
can't. You're not supposed to be
Yeah.
able to do that, but I want to actually have a ballot as a keepsake. I think I'm gonna call the Secretary of State and say, as a candidate, is it okay for me to have a
Yeah.
ballot just as a piece of memorabilia? Because I mean, honestly, I
Yeah.
get to share a ballot. The second highest seat, the only statewide election on the ballot this cycle is mine, and I get to share a ballot with Donald Trump. I mean, what an incredible honor. It really is. I don't say that to be cliche or whatever. I really mean it. It's like you just saying it right now. It hadn't clicked yet. It
Yeah.
hadn't clicked yet. The prospect that I would actually be on that ballot. I'm just fighting for the country. So, when you got your head down like you do in some of these campaigns, you don't even really think to sit back and kind of marvel at what an honor that is. Uh, crazy to even think about. But that is the game. It's going to be Kamala, Kamala, Waltz, Klobuchar, Trump, Vance, and Royce White.
Crazy. That's crazy. You should frame one if you can get your hands on one. The
Oh,
Democrats can get them by the thousands. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. I'll just call one of the Dems and say, yeah, give me one of those extra 5,000 absentee
right,
ballots.
right. Get an illegal immigrant friend to vote. You know, don't really wait. Oh, now what's going to happen to me because I said that? Get an illegal immigrant friend to get an extra one for you. No one vote illegally or more than once.
Yeah.
Do not do that.
Scary that, you know, we it's funny and there's a bit of humor, but we obviously laugh to stop from crying because the election integrity situation is what it so obviously is in this country. But
Yeah. Everyone vote once, vote legally. You have to say, well, that one
please,
guy got in trouble for making a joke to spoof how bad it was. So everyone do not do anything illegal on election day. There's only one party that's allowed to get away with that. So if you're like
yeah.
Royce, if you like Royce, you're not gonna get away with it anyway. Plus, we have Christian rules we play by. Royce, thanks a million. You have, to quote Jahan Jones from MSNBC Cuckery, one more time, you have sealed the fate of the Minnesota Republicans as a pro-extremist party. So congratulations, brother.
Amen. Praise be to God.
Praise be to God. Deus Volt, we say when we
Yes,
close
Lord.
here.
Day
It's
is
always
full.
great to see you. Yeah.
Good to
Love you,
see you
man.
too, brother. I appreciate it. Let's talk again soon, huh?
Let's do. Royce White, everybody. Parish Orphans of Retrogrades, like, subscribe, click the notification bell on this video. Vote legally always. Do not vote illegally. I nearly stepped in that trap making a joke. God bless you, Royce.